Hi and welcome back to my channel. I am Koala and this is my little nook in this end of the universe that we call YouTube. I am a shamanic practitioner, mainly within Nordic shamanism, and I'm here today to continue our journey with the Nordic goddesses. So if you're wondering, this is because of the sunlight shining in and our whatever they're called are kind of broken. So it's the light literally just shone in on the camera, so it was like, yeah, no good. So I had to do something, and it might happen again. We'll see. When the sun sets, I might have to adjust my stuff. We will see. So we have come to Freyja. And Freyja is one of the big goddesses in the Nordic tradition. I think it's one of those that most people have heard about. Her name is thrown around a lot. She has given name to a lot of characters in pop culture. And yeah, I celebrate her at the beginning of May, end of April, beginning of May. So this time I will dive a little bit deeper than I usually do or have done previously with goddesses before this year. And I will talk about what I have found in some of my sources that I have at home right now from the library. And I've cited those sources in the description box, and also know that these sources in themselves cite other older sources. So a lot of what I'm talking about comes from both early Icelandic literature and texts, but also more modern interpretations, and I'm actually going to talk a little bit about that in that video. So in this video I will, as I said, dive a little bit deeper than usual into who Freyja is, and I'm gonna answer the question, who is she? And then I will talk about my relationship with her and what that looks like. Then I will talk about how I celebrate her. And then I'm going to talk about how you can celebrate her alone or together with me, before just thanking you for being here. So we have a lot to talk about, so let's dig or dive into it, because this is going to take a while. I think this is going to take a while. So we'll just dive right into it. Freyja is the sister of Frey and the daughter of Njord. And Freyja has two daughters together with someone they call Od. And in some sources, but not all, Od is another name for Odin. And he has like 70 or 170 different names in different contexts. So that might very well be, but it could also be someone completely different, because it is not mentioned more than that. It's like, oh, it could be Odin. And the daughters are called Gersemi and Nos, which Gersemi means gem and Nos means jewel. And I'm going to talk a little bit about the fact that Frey and Freyja are siblings, and how the family tree, what that looks like. I'm gonna go into that a little later in this video. So don't fret, I will come back to that and talk a little bit about the view on that. So the home of Freyja is called Folkvang. And that can be translated into the war field, the field of war, or also the place with many people. And this is where she takes half of the people that dies in battle. So the other half goes to Odin. So Freyja comes with her Valkyries and harvests the dead on the battlefield, and she takes half of them. And there are sources that say that she mainly welcomes women to Folkvang. It doesn't say if it's all women. In some sources it says that it is all women, or every woman, and then in some sources it's the ones that have died in battle. But battle doesn't have to be in combat, it can be the battle of life. And the women who have given themselves or sacrificed themselves for someone else, and that sort of thing. So Freyja is someone who has been called when there's a difficult birth, for instance, and that can be a battle that a woman can go through, or a womb carrier can go through, to die in childbirth, for example. So that can be one of the battles that earns you a place with Freyja. And before changing the topic, I'm going to translate one of the sections of the poem called Grimnismal, or Grimner's speech. And Grimner is actually Odin, so it could be called Odin's speech, but it's not. So, this is the 14th section of Grimnismal, if you want to go look it up. And this is me translating a Swedish translation, so keep that in mind. And this is my favorite version of it, which is the one made by Jörgen Eriksson, and his small book of the Edda of the Shaman. Before going into the poem, I want you to just keep in mind that there are different homes for the gods. So a lot of the gods have different homes, and they have name to their homes, right? So Odin's is called Valhall, and I think he talked about sagas earlier this year, which was Quebec. So Folkvang is the 9th, where Freyja rules, and the seats of the hall they share, half of the dead that she collects every day, the other half Odin gets. And in another version of this, it is stated that Odin owns the other half. So depending on which translation you go to, there are different words used, and now I have translated the translation, so keep that in mind, because I don't have the Icelandic one. I wish I did. I truly wish I did. So yeah, so let's go into the next part about Freyja. So Freyja is mostly known as the goddess of love, but she is also a satyr, so she is a vulva, or someone who knows magic. She is also a war goddess that leads the Valkyries to take half of the fallen warriors. And therefore she is connected to death, so she is one of the death goddesses in a Nordic pantheon. Not the goddess of death, life and death, but one of the ones that are connected to death. So we're gonna talk a little bit more about her role as a satyr, and she's the one that teaches Odin to use magic, to satyr. And this is, in some sources, this is different in different sources, how you view this and how it is interpreted, because in some sources it is stated as, or in all sources, it's stated as a women's job to do magic, to be the one that is knowledgeable about magic, the one that you call upon when you need something magical to happen, or a magical touch. And so everyone seems to agree on that. And that Freyja is viewed as the magician of the gods. Of all of the gods and goddesses, she is the magician. And then we come to the difference in opinion depending on how far back you go and how recent you go, with different interpretations of this in different sources. Because some of them say that Odin was mocked for, deigning to do something that women should do, and in other sources it is simply it is simply stated that he learned from Freyja because she was the best, and it was something that women usually did, and it's almost like it's honoring in a way that he asks her. And when reading all of these sources, I have noticed that there's a lot of things that you can take literal, that is actually kind of jokingly put in old sources. There's a lot of jokes and a lot of like funny ways of saying things. And if you take it all literal, which it feels like the patriarchal society did, then you can use it against women. But if you take it for, at face value and see like, oh, this is them mocking each other, cheating each other, having fun with each other, all of them, gods towards goddesses and goddesses towards gods, and etc. That's just the way that they lived. And it doesn't mean anything that he is mocked for it. It doesn't mean that it's not derogatory mocking. It's more of like, oh, you don't know how to do that, you have to have her help you. Not because she's a woman, but because he's this big strong person and god that, oh, he needs help learning something. That's kind of funny. Doesn't have anything to do with that she's a woman, and if it has, it's more of like, it's in a playful way, I would say. That's my interpretation when I have read all of it. And that when we here in Sweden and in the Nordic countries, we entered into a new era where Christianity came along. We really need to remember, because a lot of the sources say that the view on things changed with Christianity, and they tried to demonize women and goddesses in a lot of ways, and the good aspects of the goddesses, especially Freyja, was put on the Virgin Mary instead. So a lot of the things that people in the Nordic countries, I don't know about the rest of the world, but in the Nordic countries, a lot of the ways that we view Virgin Mary from a Christian perspective are attributes that were once upon a time attributed to Freyja before Christianity came. And as one of the sources say, the victories tell the story and writes the story, and that is very much true for religion as well. So the winner takes it all, the winner has a say in how to phrase everything. And that is something that we simply need to remember when we dive into different sources. We need to have like a patriarchal lens on it and see, is this written to put down women and using goddesses to do that, and gods, or is it the closer to the true story of how it was viewed back in the day? So one of the sources, I'm gonna translate one of the sources from the book that is called Fornskandinavisk religion, or Ancient Scandinavian Religion. Long before the Nordic countries started to worship one god, they worshipped goddesses. These often had a lot of traits, and wasn't only goddesses of fertility. That early research that some research like to portray them as. So it was very common for a while to be like, oh yeah, they were goddesses, but it was about fertility and helping women with women's stuff, but they were actually greater than that. And it says like this, common attribute for the big goddesses, the great goddesses, and Freyja is one of the greatest. She's independent, she decides fate, she is connected to earth, but she can also be a goddess of the heavens. She's connected to the moon and less of the time connected to the sun. Her ambivalent character encompasses both good and evil. She's often depicted as two women, and sometimes as mother and daughter, and sometimes as two sisters. And then there are other attributes that aren't from this source, but that was from another source, that they are also very the way that they're independent is that they don't rely on anyone else. Like, both gods and goddesses in the Nordic pantheon can have a spouse and also lovers. So my view on it is that they seem to be more polyamorous in a way, and they can use relationships and sex to really mock each other and have fun with each other. Like, they can use each other to get back at one another, and you know, it's more play and fun, and they can of course be jealous, and they can have all of these, you know, human traits about them as well. But the way they seem to conduct life, and this is true for Freyja as well, is that they seem to have a spouse, and a spouse is someone that they live with closely for a period of time, and then often they seem to get into fights, or they realize that, like Skadi and Njord realized that they weren't meant for each other, because Skadi is the goddess of ice and Njord is the god of the sea, and though you can't combine those, you know. So they realize that they aren't really meant to be together for in the long term, but they live closely for a time. Like, a lot of gods and goddesses have different spouses in different periods of the life, because they are more or less eternal. We can get to that one in another video, talk about Ragnarök. But at the same time as they have spouses, they also have a lot of lovers in between, but also during, and they don't take that part not all of them take that part seriously, but they also are, you know, they kind of mocked for it, they make jokes about it, and Loki is known for mocking everyone, and he's still the biggest joker of them all. And like, he has his things as well. I mean, he's the father of he's the father and or mother you know, of Jörgen, Sleipnir and Hel, the goddess of life and death. And he actually gave birth to Sleipnir, which I talked about in that video. You can see that one up here. So and Loki is one of the gods that are extremely androgynous, and I'm gonna go into that a bit now, about the androgyny. My mind just went blank. Androgyny? Androgynuity? Androgynous? What, androgynuity? No. Anyway, so let's see if I, with my mind not grasping the English word for that, if I can translate the next paragraph here for you. So, before reading that, I need to let you know that with Vanir, we most often talk about Njord, Freyja, and Frey. Okay. The Vanir was gods of fertility, and it had to do with the power of growth. This type of gods was most often conceived as androgynous, which means two-sexed or two-gendered, double gender. The word that is used is the Swedish word for the actual organs, like doubles. So I guess that would be double-sexed and not gendered. This came to be told as one male principle and one female principle that was conceived as both siblings in myth, but also spouses. And this was to actually show that it was this two sides of the same divine entity. And this closeness between them is also often marked by the names that they are given. So the male principle and the female principle are given names that are very similar, like Frey and Freyja. We also have Njord and Njerd. So Njord is the father of Frey and Freyja, right? Njerd is the mother of Frey and Freyja, but in all sources in many sources that I have come across, they are one and the same. So Njerd is a face of Njord and Njord is a face of Njerd. It's the same divine entity, and it says here that the Nordic countries weren't the only ones that had this, because you can look within ancient Indian religion and find Yama, which is the male principle, and Yami, the female principle of one divine entity. And then in the Roman mythology, we have Faunus and Fauna, which is also the male and the female principle of the same entity. And then it says here, in Njord's case, it seems to have been he seems to have been married to the goddess Njerd. There's not much to talk about her, more than that she is the other side of Njord, as well as his spouse, and she is the mother of Frey and Freyja, and he is the father. So something that is, common in the Nordic pantheon is that they can almost change their sex and change the gender, as it suits them. They are very gender non-conformative in that way. That includes Loki. It includes Frey and Freyja, that we view often as two different entities, but we can put them together. And then we have Njord, that is the only surviving parent, but he acts as both the mother and the father, and it's almost like he absorbed his wife. I haven't found any account of how she died. So this is what I wanted to talk about when I said earlier I was gonna get back to the androgyny. Is that the word? Of the gods and goddesses in the Nordic pantheon. So now I have talked about that, so let's move on. Cats. Let's talk cats, right? So Freyja's chariot or wagon is pulled by two cats. And in some sources it only says cats, in some sources it says male cats. So I don't really know what that is. But then there are some patriarchal sources. And this is so funny because one of the sources I have, one of the books that I have that have, pulled sources together and talk about what she has found, one of these authors, she says that she has seen that it is common for male scientists that try to interpret old texts that the cats that pulls Freyja's wagon symbolizes promiscuity and like female yearning. And when we look at the fact that Freyja, one of Freyja's names is Syr, which is often in the same instances interpreted as Suggan in Swedish, which is the sow, like the mother pig. This comes natural. That she's this mother pig, and this sow and her cats are a symbol of her promiscuity and her her seductiveness and that sort of thing. And it's really funny that it's actually mentioned in the sources as we need to look at this through the lens of who actually wrote this, right? Because one of her names is Syr, Syr, but that also means the protector. And in those instances when it is most often used is when during childbirth, that we can summon Freyja to be the protector through summoning her with that name. So she is the protector of women in difficult childbirth. And remember what I said earlier about childbirth being a battlefield? and if you die in childbirth, she's there to take you to Folkvang and take care of you there in the afterlife. So it's also mentioned that, as I said, Loki, he is, you know, he's famous for making fun of and mocking everyone for everything, and often mock the other gods and goddesses for their sexual encounters with each other. And when he does this, so when Christianity came into the picture, and when the patriarchal, you know, when it was viewed from a patriarchal lens and interpreted in that way, they started to the texts and the interpretation started to talk about how the women and the goddesses were promiscuous, and that Loki shone a light on this, while when he mocks the gods and the men for being the same way, having a lot of lovers, that is, you know, viewed as they are either that it's a good thing, but more often just as Loki having a, you know, a bad sense of beer, it's called. Like he can't hold his liquor and he's making jokes. It's not serious, don't take him seriously, you know. So when he talks about the goddesses and their promiscuity, you should really take it seriously. It's about their character. They are bad people, bad women. They are fallen ones, you know. And then we have the men and they're like, oh, but he's just, don't listen to him. He can't hold his liquor, and he, you know, he can't hold his beer. It's nothing, you know. And that this view of things enter the picture together with the patriarchal society that is Christianity. Before that, it was just mockering all around, and everyone was in Sweden we call it pulling someone by the nose. When you trick someone, you pull them by the nose. So they did that, you know, left and right, and they also you know, slept with whoever they wanted. And as I said before, I've talked about this, so I'm not gonna do it again. Now I'm gonna go into all of the names of Freyja. Just mention that she has a lot of different names. She is often seen as the same as Menglöd, which is a goddess I've talked about on my Patreon in a video where I talked about all of the goddesses that I don't celebrate during the year. I talked about Menglöd. And so in a lot of instances she is seen as the one face of Freyja, but we don't know that. As a practitioner, I view them as different goddesses, but in the same way, all of the goddesses is just different faces of, you know, the divine. So we also have other names as Mardel, Hörn, Gefn, which is the same as Gefjun, and that's a goddess that I have talked about as well on my Patreon, and that is the one who gives. And that is a goddess that I very much view as it's her own entity, her own, you know, divine entity, and you know, set apart from Freyja. So I have the same view there as I have on Menglöd. Then we have Syr, which I've talked about. You can call upon Freyja with that name to have her protect you. And then we have Vanadis, which is a really a common name, and it simply means the woman or the goddess that belongs to the Vanir. According to some sources, I don't know if I view it that way. Then we have Thrungva, Shafn, Gulvey, and Heid. And there's a whole story about Gulvey, and I haven't, you know, dove deeper into that yet, and I don't know if I will. I have so many things I want to dive deeper into this year. I don't know if I have the time, but if you want to know more about Freyja and all of the names, you can, you know, search every different name. Yeah, I think I want to end this section of the video here, just talk about a little bit about all of the fact that all of the magical properties, or the properties as a magician, the abilities as a magician that Freyja has, that no matter how much in some sources, you know, with the male gaze upon them, Odin is mocked for asking Freyja to help him learn Seder and learn magic. I have seen or noticed that overall the gods and the goddesses seem to really look up to and honor the different abilities that Freyja has when it comes to her being the great magician of them all. And one thing is that she often lends her shapeshifter ability to other gods and goddesses when they need to do something, sometimes just to, you know, trick someone or something, which is really funny, and sometimes to help them get someone back from the lower worlds and that sort of thing. And so Freyja is known to shapeshift into a falcon or some kind of big bird. Like a falcon is the most often mentioned, but in some sources it can be an eagle, it can be any other kind of like predatory bird, big bird, that is common in the Nordic countries in Scandinavia, not in any other part of the world. We don't have a condor here, for example. I talked about this, and I will talk about this in the future when I talk about Hugin and Moonin here on my YouTube channel. That video has already been released on my Patreon earlier in March, and I think it was in March, but it will be on YouTube in August. And I talk about Hugin and Moonin as the ravens and how they are viewed upon and how birds are viewed upon. So yeah, I think that's what I wanted to talk about when it came to Freyja. There's a lot to go into, there's a lot to dive deeper into. This has been kind of a summary, I would say. So let's get into the rest of the video. What is my relationship with Freyja? Well, my relationship with Freyja has definitely changed over the years. So around 15 years ago, I really needed her energy because I had been through a major trauma and I needed to take my power back. And that is when I started to feel a bit closer to Freyja, and I actually met someone here in Sweden that is also a rune magician and a sager, and I would say she's a really powerful. She calls herself a witch, but she also calls herself a priestess, and she actually have one of the big, like, you can walk the way of the priestess with her for like 3 years, I think, and become a daughter of Freyja or a son of Freyja. So you can become a priest of Freyja or a priestess of Freyja. She has a school, you can almost say, that is the sons and daughters of Freyja. And I met her when in the beginning of her journey with starting this school, and I really felt like she embodied and just radiated all of the wonderful, amazing aspects of Freyja that I really needed at the time and that I really liked. And I met her in in a setting that was with another Nordic shaman. It's hard to describe without saying exactly what it was about, and I don't really want to do that. But I met her in a setting where we were a lot of people gathering, and it was almost a festival of a sort when we met, and I really felt a kinship with her. And so when I learned from her view of Freyja, because she was like walking the path of Freyja, I was really intrigued. I never felt like I wanted to walk the path of Freyja that intently. I am more dedicated to heal than to Freyja in that way, but it was really interesting. And so that was definitely a part of my journey, getting to know Freyja through someone else's journey with Freyja. So when I met this person, she's called Lola Ravenstar, I had previously, before that, I had dove deeper into taking my power back after this major traumatic event. And I had done that by entering into some aspects of the Kira medicine, because I looked for help within the shamanic community, and I really felt like I connected with someone that practiced the Kiro medicine, and she's also from Honduras. So I had gone through a major journey of discovering the goddesses in that tradition, and then I met this wonderful woman who walked with Freyja, and I really soaked up that. I would say I more soaked up the energy that she was carrying and emitting, and really, felt something from that more than what she's told me. Memory is very selective sometimes, but I really appreciated everything that she said. So after that, I walked with Freyja. That is when I started to really celebrate Freyja yearly for a number of years, and then I invited friends to do that with me, and it was most often about this taking the power back from being traumatized and being being a young person that hadn't really been able to that had gone through some things. So I definitely had a period when her power of Freyja was the major thing in my relationship with her, and then I walked into a period of time where her abilities as a satyr and a magician was the major aspect of her that I was working with. But in between those, almost like a segue between those, I worked with Hel a lot, and I discovered the warrior in me, and that is how I started to work with Freyja and her Valkyries, and that aspect of myself as well. And working with, when I did that, I found that I had two sides of that coin as well, and it was a really interesting journey. So I have worked with Freyja in all of the aspects of Freyja, I would say, the major aspects of her, and also some, if there are any minors, I have also come across those. And now I would say that my picture of Freyja is whole, and I have taken all of the tinier bits. I have worked with that and that and that and that and integrated everything, and now I celebrate and honor her, and listen to and channel her in ceremony. So when I celebrate, I'm going to go into that now. How do I celebrate Freyja? I would say that I celebrate all of the aspects of Freyja, and when I celebrate with my friends, we can have like a fire ceremony outside. We have done some dancing to the drum and really, letting loose and just, working with our inner power. And then I have also had, slower, calmer ceremonies to honor her, when, working more with and honoring the side of her as a magician. And they go hand in hand. Everything goes hand in hand, but some aspects are, come through stronger when I honor her. And then of course I have the goddess ceremonies that I host, and those are a big part of my celebration of all of the goddesses. And with Freyja, I love to invite her into my circle, and that is more me showing other people how to connect with her and give them a channel to her energies, and different aspects come through each year, I would say. I'm gonna go into how you can celebrate with me, and that is within a goddess ceremony. So the goddess ceremony that I host in English is gonna be on the 4th of May. So May 4th, we're going to meet in the ceremony and celebrate and honor Freyja this year. And you can join me in this ceremony. The easiest way is to join my Patreon, the tier that is called Nordic Goddesses and Other Ceremonies. And on that tier you will get access to the ceremony. The ceremony will be via video call, so a group video call with all participants. And we meet on Google Meet. I have switched my game from Zoom to Google Meet. That is what I'm exploring right now. So on Patreon, on the tier of Nordic goddesses and other ceremonies, you will get all of the information about the ceremony. You will get all this information about where to go, the link and everything. And then after the ceremony, if you can't be there when the ceremony is, because it will take place 7 p.m. Central European time, which I know might not suit everyone depending on where in the world you are and what day of the week it is. So you do get access to the ceremony afterwards, and if you join the ceremony when it is, you can view the recording in order to, make notes afterwards and that sort of thing. And if you miss the ceremony, you can still view the recording and take part in the ceremony afterwards and make it a part of your own celebration. So, and then you have access to a ceremony chat on my Patreon, and also a private chat with me, so you can ask questions, you can share your experiences and that sort of thing, even if you can't be there live. So what does this goddess ceremony look like? We meet on Google Meet. You will get the invite link and you will show up. And then I open Sacred Space and invite the goddess to join us. And then we talk a little bit about Freyja and our relationship with her. If you can let everyone know if you have a relationship with her before, if it's your first time connecting with her. You don't have to share that if you don't want to, but there's space to do that. And I also talk about the ceremony overall when we are in ceremony. And then the third thing that we do is that we go into meditation and meet Freyja in the middle world. So that is how we do it. It's a good way to do it if you're a beginner, but it's also a good way to do it if you are experienced. So we go into meditation and meet Freyja in the middle world, and gain the knowledge and the insights that she wishes to give us in that moment. And we'll see what aspect of her that we will see more of, if we see more of one aspect of her than the other. But we honor all of her aspects, all as a goddess of love, as a goddess of magic, as a goddess of death, and every aspect of her we honor in that ceremony. So then we come out of meditation and ground ourselves, and I give you some time to write down anything that you wish to remember directly after being in meditation. And then we share what we want to share. You can share a lot or nothing at all, that is up to you. And those two things, the documenting and the sharing, are not recorded. Then I start recording again, closing the sacred space, so that part is included for people watching afterwards. So, join my Patreon to join me in ceremony on the 4th of May. Before that, however, on April 13th, we will celebrate and honor Eir in what I call Eir's healing circle. So if you join when you watch this video, you can participate in that as well. So it's only like 2.5 weeks between those ceremonies, I think, or maybe 3 weeks. So yeah, that's kind of a plus if you join at this time, because then you get like 2 ceremonies for the price of 1. I don't know what I did there, but yeah. So, how can you celebrate on your own? Well, I think it depends on, you can celebrate in a lot of different ways, and how you do it depends on what aspect of her you want to honor, if you want to work with that aspect of her, or if you don't. So, a beginner's way of doing it is simply inviting her into your circle, maybe using runes or cards to get to know her. Ask her about her different aspects, ask her about her abilities, ask how you can learn from her or how you can walk with her. And then the next level is going into meditation and inviting her into closer into your space, your personal space, and getting to know her there. And maybe even absorb some of the energy or embody the energy of Freyja. And then of course you can go even deeper and do a shamanic journey with Freyja if you are really experienced. So yeah, that is how you can do that, and you can take inspiration from me or from other people and do your own thing. I think it's really important to really get to know the goddesses if you want to work with them, so you don't just call upon Freyja when you want something, but you kind of give something in return when you work with her and honor her and get to know her. So really build a relationship with all of the gods and goddesses that you want to work with. That is what I encourage people to do. Just as I encourage people to really walk with the runes. If you're going to work with the runes, you need to walk with the runes, not just, learn superficially what they stand for and what they mean. You need to really embody their energies and learn from them and walk with them, so that you can interpret them correctly when you use them for divinational purposes, for instance. And if you want to use runes for Seder, then you really need to get to know the energies. And if you want to call upon Freyja for Seder, for magic, for anything, then you really need to get to know her, so that you know what you're getting yourself into. That is true for all of the gods and goddesses. Yeah. And on the tier of curious, on my Patreon for April, we will dive deeper into Ratatosk, the little squirrel that runs up and down the tree of life, between Nidhög on the bottom and the eagle at the top. So we will work a little bit with the squirrel in April, and in May we will dive deeper into one of the gods, because I will start a new series here on YouTube in May, talking about some of the gods of the Nordic pantheon. So thank you for watching. I have already mentioned my Patreon a lot, so I'm not going to do it again. Yeah. I also hope that you will like this video, comment if you have any questions, if you just want to let me know that you've been here. Give me a fire emoji or an eagle emoji for her shape-shifting abilities. Or maybe give me something connected to death. Give me an emoji to let me know that you were here if you don't have anything to say. I like those. So, yeah, walk in beauty, walk with the goddesses, and happy spring. Shingling.